Salam alaikum, ya shabab. How's everybody doing? I wanted to take a minute to get some thoughts off. I was thinking about how Islam really is a counterfeit version of Christianity, a counterfeit version of the true faith, starting off with the God of the Quran essentially being Satan. You get this idea from the Quran itself. It says that Allah is the best of deceivers, in the Arabic specifically, Na'ul Khair Makrin. So we have this idea that the God of the Quran is Satan because in the Bible, Fil Kitab al-Muqaddas, it says that Satan is the father of lies. So if Satan is a father of some sorts, then essentially he would have children. And most Muslims that I meet are very respectful type of people, especially when you talk to them in real life. They'll even give you the shirt off their back. But essentially the problem comes when we start talking about the religion itself. And this is when you see the lies and deception. So let's take a look at something really quick. Recently in the headlines, what's been really popular in the world of apologetics between Christianity and Islam is the Islamic dilemma. Just to recap, if Islam is pointing you to a book that is true, then Islam is false because the Quran contradicts the Bible. But if Islam is pointing you to a book that is corrupted, that is false, then Islam is still false because now it's pointing you to a corrupted book, to corrupted scriptures, and affirming those corrupted scriptures. And I'll put links where you can actually watch interactions with some of the brothers that we do ministry with. And even myself, I've done some videos debating some Muslims on this particular topic. So I won't rehash it. Most of you all are pretty well aware of what the Quran dilemma is. So let's take the premise that this is true. Within the Bible, we get the idea that even if an angel of light comes and preaches a different gospel, do not listen to him because that person will be accursed. For even Satan appears and as an angel of light, and his ministers appear likewise to deceive people. So we understand that if the Bible is true, if the Quran is pointing you to this book and this book is true, and we can get information from it, in the book it tells you exactly who to watch out for false prophets and for people who are coming to deceive you. These people are messengers of Satan. In fact, Jesus said in the gospel in Matthew 7, beware of false prophets, and elsewhere throughout the gospel. And specifically, he said you can identify a false prophet by the fruits that they bear. And then John, the apostle, said likewise in his epistles about the Antichrist, one who denies the Father and the Son. Well, we get this idea in the Quran in several places, in Surah Al-Ma'idah, Surah Al-Ikhlas. We get it everywhere. Surah Maryam, that Allah is not a father, nor does he have sons. But this is exactly what the Bible warns us against. People who are trying to come in and say that God does not have a son, God is not a father. This is what the Apostle John warned us about. And these are the fruits that these false prophets bear, that Jesus himself, the Messiah, warned us about. So these are things that we need to really watch out for. It even gets worse because in the Quran you have in Surah An-Nisa, ayah 157, it says, وَمَا قَتَلُوهُ وَمَا صَلَبُوهُ وَلَكِنْ شُبِّهَ لَهُمْ. They did not unalive him, nor did they crucify him, but it was made to appear so. Well, we know that according to the Bible, in Luke, in all the Gospels, Jesus was crucified. Revelation chapter 1, verse 18, Jesus says that he is the ever-living one, for he was dead and now he's alive forevermore. So we know that the Bible all over the place points to the crucifixion of Christ and to the resurrection of Christ, but the Quran says that never happened. Now, what's interesting is if it didn't happen, then why do we get this phrase, وَلَكِنْ شُبِّهَ لَهُمْ, that it was made to appear so? Well, for those of you who are a little more astute, we know this comes from Gnostic sources. The second treatise of the Great Seth, the Apocalypse of Peter, so on and so on. These are Gnostic stories that somehow found their way into the Quran. But there's a bigger issue here, because if Allah is the best of deceivers, khayr makarin, then you have this idea of him deceiving people. Well, we get this in the same verse we were reading, Surah An-Nisa, ayah 157, وَلَكِنْ شُبِّهَ لَهُمْ, that it was made to appear so. So we have this idea that God is deceiving people, the true believers even, but Basleh, why? Why would he be deceiving the true believers? It makes no sense. Only thing that makes sense about it is if this God that we find in the Quran is not really God at all, but is a counterfeit of the true God. And it just gets worse and worse as we go along, as we read the hadith, as we read the Quran, as we read, especially with the Muslims that are Sunni, that are part of Ahl Sunnah wal Jama'ah. As we read their sources, it is just imperative, it is demonstrably apparent that this cannot be the true God. So for anybody who is listening, for anybody who wants to know the truth, we just ask you to read the Bible, open up the Bible, because the Quran is pointing to it anyways. And in chapter 10, verse 94 of the Quran, it says, it told Muhammad, if he was in doubt, to go to the people who were reading those scriptures. So if the Bible is the book that the Quran confirms, then you need to come to us. You need to come to us because we have the book. Within the Quran, it says that the Jews and the Christians have this book with them, right? It says that Muhammad somehow can be found in it. يجدونه مكتوب عندهم في التوراة والإنجيل. So apparently Muhammad can be found somewhere in these scriptures. So if these scriptures are false, then Allah is telling us to look for their prophet in a false book. It just doesn't make any sense. Mishmaul. So we have this situation here where the Bible that we have has to be that book. So now this book, according to chapter 10, verse 94, is the superiority, the book that is over the Quran in terms of truth. So Muslims, were asking you guys to go to that book, read it, and see exactly what we're talking about. The God of the Bible is not the God of the Quran. So now we have the situation where we have to pick and choose. Which will you choose? Will you choose the God of the Quran that obviously is deceptive and it seems arbitrarily, or will you choose the God of the Bible? For God so loved us that even while we were yet sinners, Christ died for us. Or John 3:16, the most famous verse, for God so loved the world that he sent his only begotten son, that whoever believes in him shall not perish but have eternal life. Balls in your court, guys.